The Determination Form, the Way of the Sarlacc. The first and most basic description of Shii-Cho was provided in the Lightsaber article written by David West Reynolds and Jack Bobo, and published in Star Wars Insider 27, and it reads as follows. Millennia before the Clone Wars, advanced technology replaced metal swords with energy beam lightsabers. In this transition, the first form was born. Jedi Masters created Form 1 from ancient sword-fighting traditions, since the principles of blade combat remained much the same. The basics of attack, parry, body target zone, and the practice drills called velocities are all here. The basics of lightsaber combat. By definition, the technical elements of Shii-Cho were originally outlined in the Attack of the Clones visual dictionary. The core of Shii-Cho were the body target zones and their corresponding attacks and parries. Zone 1 was the head, Zone 2 was the right arm and side, Zone 3 was the left arm and side, Zone 4 was the torso, chest, and back, Zone 5 was the right leg, Zone 6 was the left leg. The actual strikes and blocks of Shii-Cho were divided into two distinct movesets, Ideal Form and Live Combat Form. In Ideal Form, all of the attacks were performed at perfect right angles, Zone 1 attacks being vertical overhands, while Zones 2, 3, 5, and 6 were horizontal side swipes, with the blocks being perpendicular. In Live Combat Form, the attacks and parries were performed diagonally, in order to minimize movement. As detailed in the Lightsaber article, Shii-Cho's curriculum included the lightsaber practice drills called velocities. Essentially choreographed mock duels, velocities were intended to develop fast reflexes, and consisted of two students performing prearranged sequences with increasing speed until one student was either felled or yielded. Other Shii-Cho practice techniques included basic laser blast deflection training with a remote, often performed while blindfolded, in order to encourage students to rely on the Force rather than their physical senses. Those maneuvers and stances specific to Shii-Cho would be detailed in a variety of sources. The basic stance of Form 1 was specified in Mysteries of the Jedi, a simple middle guard position with the hilt held low in two hands, the blade pointed upwards, feet square on. The example stance provided in the Essential Guide to the Force is a right side guard, blade held in a two-handed parry position, likely intended to represent the classic Jedi ready position. The example stance provided in Star Wars lightsabers is a horizontal parry position, blade held level at shoulder height, broadside out, facing the opponent's side on. Maneuvers actually intended for combat were detailed in the Jedi Academy training manual. The first was the disarming slash, a strike intended to rip an opponent's weapon from his grasp, or in the case of non-lightsaber wielding enemies, destroy it. The second was the Sarlacc sweep, a wide attack intended to strike multiple opponents. I will be making a separate video detailing the lightsaber combat marks of contact and other more general maneuvers, many of which were originally conceived as part of Shii-Cho, but were carried over to the other forms and are not exclusive to it. For all intents and purposes, the fundamental discipline of the Shii-Cho form was the fundamental discipline at the core of Jedi training, but taken to its most extreme degree so it can be applied to combat. This is most clearly illustrated by Kit Fisto's description of the Jedi flow exercise, and I quote, "Jedi feel the Force as an ocean of energy in which they immerse themselves, floating with its currents or directing its wave. For the average person, the subtle sensations of life are no ocean, but they can still be a stream or a river. Your body holds memories of pain, anger, fear. It holds them in your tissues, conditioned responses that attempt to protect you from future injury. Tight like a fist, it warps and twists you. When you collect enough of them, they are like armor, but Jedi wear no armor. Armor both protects and numbs. Jedi must expose themselves fully to the currents of the universe. I can teach you how to remove some of these wounds. Think of them as boulders, obstacles on the river of energy. Learn to flow around your fears and angers instead of crashing against them. Learn to do this well enough, and you can even direct the river to move the boulders for you, widening the riverbed, increasing the flow of energy. This was a vital skill for fledgling Jedi initiates who were just starting out, as it fosters that connection and trust in the Force necessary to advance as a Jedi. However, where other Jedi are a gentle stream, Masters of Shii-Cho are the raging rapids, wild, raw, and deadly. They have given themselves over to the Force completely, blasting aside all obstacles and wallowing in its energies. Kit Fisto described the mindset as the howling demon in his mind, trapped behind bars of discipline, but guiding him as he slid down Form 1's razor edge. For obvious reasons, a dedicated study of Form 1 lightsaber combat posed just as much of a danger to an initiate's psychological balance as the study of Form 7, making a specialization in Shii-Cho something of a calculated risk. In regards to the practical merits of Shii-Cho, the Sith Lord Darth Traya had this to say, and I quote, "It is simple, and its simplicity is strength. It allows focus, a slightly improved chance of connecting with one's opponent. It has no other advantages or disadvantages. It is an effective form to fall back on when no other form will do." In Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords, the Shii-Cho form had specific bonuses against multiple opponents, and when one factors in the Sarlacc sweep maneuver, the primary purpose of Form 1 lightsaber combat is clearly illustrated: crowd control. As a result, Shii-Cho was ideally suited for the battlefield. If the styles of Kit Fisto and Zet Jukasa are any indication, a typical Shii-Cho specialist essentially wades into enemy formations, sweeping their lightsabers side to side, advancing like a bulldozer and cleaving people in half. That being said, the simplicity of the style made it easily adapted for other combat situations and allowed for a high degree of improvisation. The Revenge of the Sith novelization describes Obi-Wan Kenobi as employing what I would term an intermediate application of Shii-Cho against Count Dooku, and I quote, "Kenobi came on in a measured Shii-Cho cadence, deliberate as a lumber droid, moving step by step, cutting off the angles, clumsy but relentlessly dogged as he tried to shivvy Dooku into a corner." A true master-level demonstration of Shii-Cho technique is provided by Kit Fisto in the Cestus Deception, where he is described employing dynamic acrobatic maneuvers and complex blade work to bypass the defenses of a Force-sensitive JK-13 security droid. During a later sparring match with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Kenobi described Fisto as astonishingly aggressive and intuitive, as compared to his own more measured approach. The climax of the book featured an engagement between Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress, and it is described as follows. "He was like fire, Ventress like smoke. The dance had substance but not form, a blur of light that seemed impossibly fast, unbelievably deadly. The two leapt and swerved, collided and bounced away, single against double light blades, hands, knees, feet, all in a mind-numbing blur." As the lightsaber tutorial style, Shii-Cho was obviously intended to accommodate the standard weapon. However, the utter simplicity of the form made it easy to adapt to alternative weapon variants. The wide sweeping movements carried over well to the saber staff, the fighting style of Savage Opress being a good benchmark for what to expect from a Shii-Cho specialist armed with a double blader. And we've actually seen Shii-Cho applied with dual sabers. Again, the simplistic sweeping attacks carry over well, as they minimize the risk of the two blades getting tangled with one another. Both weapon variants play into Shii-Cho's emphasis on group engagements, as the extra blade provides more surface area for striking and parrying, which means that more attacks can be blocked and more opponents can be hit. The saber staff especially is an excellent crowd-fighting weapon. On a side note, the lightsabers of both Kit Fisto and Lucien Dray share a very similar design profile, with the rounded pommel, the flared-out ridged emitter, and the narrow hand grip along the middle section. Due to this commonality, I believe that this subtle design variation may be a favorite amongst dedicated Shii-Cho masters, providing ergonomic advantages that reinforce the use and application of Form 1 in a similar manner to how curved hilts reinforce the use of Makashi, though this remains loose speculation. In my view, the best orthodox live combat demonstration of Shii-Cho was provided by the Jedi initiate Zet Jukasa, as featured in Revenge of the Sith. The most heavily featured Shii-Cho specialist in Star Wars media is Kit Fisto, who appeared in 2 out of the 6 films. Another notable figure is Lucien Dray, one of the primary villains in the Knights of the Old Republic comic series.